This video is going to be about how to make histograms and box plots with your graphing calculator. Before we can start to make either one of those types of graphs, we have to have our information put into a list. I already have the information in the list, and if you need more information about that, you can watch the video on lists. But just to show you that the information's here, under the Stat button, under Edit, under List 1 is where I've entered all my data for my box plot or my histogram. After we have our list entered in, we have to actually select the type of graph that we would like to make, and that happens under your second function y equals button, or right above there it says Stat Plots. So as we look into our stat plots, we've got the capability of plotting up to 3 different graphs, and right now all of those 3 plots are turned off. So I'm going to select the first plot, and I'm going to actually plot one, and you can notice that the darkened area here, this one's turned off. So I'm going to move over to the on. I'm going to actually press enter and kind of toggle the on. So now I have this plot turned on, and I'm also going to move down to the type of graph I'd like to create, and the first type I'm going to create is a histogram. So I'm going to select histogram. I'm going to move on to it and press enter. And then I need to tell it which list I had my data in, which we looked at earlier, and I've got my data entered into list 1. So if I would like to then hit graph, I probably won't be able to see much of this graph because I haven't set my window. But an easy way to get your graph to kind of appear on your window is to go into your zoom. And in your zoom, actually let me do a second quit and hit zoom. In zoom you've got these options, and if we move down to about number 9, there is something called Zoom Stat. So I want to select number 9 under Zoom Stat. And what that's going to do is it's just going to kind of throw my histogram up on the viewing rectangle, viewing window, and I'm going to actually look in my window now and see how the calculator set my window. So you kind of see these crazy numbers in there. So we're going to kind of go in here and kind of fine tune this window so it can be a little bit more legible, and so we can actually transfer this onto paper if we needed to do this by hand. So let's start in the x direction, our minimum x. Let's make that 0. It's a nice easy place to start. 2 is close to 0. And then in our maximum, this is close to maybe, it's 38 point something, so let's go up maybe to 40. Make it a nice round number of 40. And then the next thing is our x scale, which our x scale is going to tell us how we're going to be grouping the data along our bottom of our x axis. Sometimes that's called the class edge. So it's got it close to 5, so let's keep it at 5 on our grouping. The y minimum is irrelevant. That's kind of just opening up some space down below our x-axis so we can kind of see what's down there. So I'm just going to call that about -3 just to make it nice and even. And then our y maximum is close to 10, so let's go up to maybe 10. Our y scale, let's do it by maybe 2s. So now when we hit, and the resolution and the rest of this we don't need to change. So when we hit graph now, we can see our histogram, and we know that when we trace along here, we've got kind of our grouping, our class edges here. So in between 0 and 5, 0 would being here and 5 being over here, we've got one piece of data. And if we just trace along the tops of these bars, between 5 and 10, not including 10 but equal to 5, we've got 2 pieces of data. And between 10 and 15 we've got 4, and between 15 and 27, and so on. So we're able to actually look at and see how many pieces of data are in each category here as we move along. The other type of graph I wanted to look at was a box plot. And so what I'm going to do now is just change the setting from a histogram to a box plot. So that's the second function, y equals. And here we're going to look in our same plot. And instead of choosing a histogram, we're just going to move down to the type here. And we're going to move over to box plots. There's two types. One of them kind of has your outliers off your whiskers, and this one I have selected here is kind of just a regular box plot. So I'm going to select this one, and I'm going to also do a zoom number 9 again, which is a zoom stat, and there is our box plot. So when we hit trace on our box plot, what we've got is the 5-number summary. So right there, there's the median, and then if I move left to right, there's the first quartile. Here's our minimum. So our first quartile, our median, our third quartile, and our maximum.